It was one of the most notorious cases in Texas history. An ambush in a mansion left 2 people dead and 2 others wounded. To this day, no one has been held accountable.
Welcome to the True Crime Stories channel. Today, we're going to dive into a notorious and perplexing case that has left investigators baffled for decades. It's the story of 2 people whose lives were tragically cut short. Their death has left behind a trail of unanswered questions, and their families forever haunted by the loss of their loved ones. Did a Texas multimillionaire Cullen Davis get away with killing them? Can money buy justice? This is a story of wealth, power, and alleged corruption, where trust and loyalty were shattered beyond repair. Thomas Cullen Davis was born in Fort Worth, Texas, in 1933. He is the second son of Kenneth W. Davis Sr., an oil magnate, and Alice Mae Bound. In 1958, Davis Sr. founded Ken Davis Industries International, the world's largest oil supply company at the time. Despite his wealth, he was a strict disciplinarian who believed in hard work and modest living. He instilled these values in his children, raising them to be diligent businessmen. Cullen attended Arlington Heights High School and later Texas A&M University with his older brother, Kenneth Jr. Their father sent them there because it was the cheapest, hardest place he could think of. In school, Cullen kept to himself. He didn't participate in extracurricular activities and caused no trouble. He was known for his frugality, charging friends a nickel for rides in his Chevy Powerglide. He eventually joined the family business, working long hours and proving to be a competitive entrepreneur. In August 1962, Davis married Sandra Masters. Together, they had 2 sons. He later confessed that his decision to marry Sandra was influenced more by the approval of others, particularly his father, than by his own feelings of love for her, although he did care deeply for his wife. Despite appearing as a quiet and compliant son, Cullen harbored secret aspirations of escaping his father's strict control and living independently in his ideal home while indulging in his passion for sports cars. He was also characterized as having a dark side, displaying traits of entitlement, anger, and aggression. He was fixated on acquiring whatever he desired, and allegedly fantasized about harming his wife if he grew tired of her. When Cullen was 34 years old and had been married for 5 years, he met Priscilla Wilborn, a 26-year-old striking and extravagant woman, married mother of 3. Priscilla started playing tennis at the same country club in Fort Worth as Cullen. She was hoping to meet the social elite, and it worked, as Davis noticed her right away. Priscilla didn't grow up with a country club lifestyle like Cullen did. She grew up poor, raised by a single mother after her father left them. When Priscilla was 16 years old, she got married for the first time. Her daughter Dee was born in the 1960s, but the marriage ended after about a year. At the age of 18, Priscilla married a 40-year-old man named Jack Wilborn. She liked how relaxed Jack was, and she wanted a stable family for her daughter since she grew up without one herself. Together they had 2 children, a son, Jack Jr., and a daughter, Andrea. Priscilla's second husband was a successful car salesman, but their lifestyle wasn't good enough for her. She wanted more. She was a girl from the wrong side of the tracks, and she wanted to be socially acceptable in Fort Worth. When Priscilla and Cullen met in 1967, both of them were almost divorced. Cullen's wife Sandra had already started the divorce process, and Priscilla's husband Jack was about to do the same. In late 1968, while both were undergoing divorce proceedings, Cullen proposed to Priscilla despite their ongoing legal matters. On New Year's Day of 1969, private investigators hired by Priscilla's husband discovered Cullen Davis in a motel room with Priscilla. This scandalous affair became national news. As a consequence, Priscilla lost custody of her 3 children. After both divorces were finalized, Priscilla and Cullen arranged a small wedding for August 29, 1968. That morning, just 5 hours before the wedding, Cullen's father, Ken, passed away. Instead of delaying the wedding for a few days, they decided to postpone it for just a few hours and get married on the same day. Cullen felt sad about losing his father, but in some ways, he also felt liberated by it. With his dad no longer in the picture, Cullen inherited a significant sum of money, which he used to freely pursue his desires. He was no longer under the judgment and control of his finances, and at the same time, he was marrying someone who had lived a very different life from what he was accustomed to. He was used to a more conservative lifestyle, while Priscilla was flamboyant and flashy. She wore clothes that showed more skin than most people would feel comfortable wearing. She had very tall, platinum blonde hair. She enjoyed taking Cullen to honky-tonks and nightclubs more often than to the country club, which he also enjoyed. Cullen began a global spending spree, purchasing antiques, paintings, and various art objects from galleries around the world. In 1972, he realized his dream by investing $6 million, the equivalent of $44 million today, to construct Stonegate Mansion. The grand estate, resembling a municipal building from the exterior, was situated atop a hill with a view of downtown Fort Worth. It had 5 bedrooms, 11 bathrooms, an indoor swimming pool, tennis courts, and a large acreage of land. The master bedroom alone was 2,000 square feet. Decorated with the expensive items he had gathered over time, the mansion represented his luxurious way of living. Cullen loved having Priscilla by his side. He appeared to genuinely enjoy this more thrilling, more liberated lifestyle. The Davises began hosting late-night parties at Stonegate, rumored to involve illegal substances and adult orgies. Priscilla, known for her love of extravagance, underwent breast surgery, wore revealing attire, and owned a diamond necklace inscribed with the words, "Rich Bitch." Cullen considered his wife as just another item to show others. In his personal life, Cullen Davis was strict, disciplined, and had little tolerance for mistakes or failure, mirroring his approach in business. Nonetheless, he and Priscilla initially appeared to have a harmonious relationship. She admired him greatly, and he lavished her with expensive gifts. Upon moving into Stonegate Mansion, Davis's previously concealed dark side emerged, and he turned physically abusive towards both his wife Priscilla and his adopted daughter Dee. One particularly disturbing event occurred when Dee, who was 13 at the time, left the back door of the mansion unlocked. Upon discovering it, Cullen woke Dee to reprimand her. Shortly after, in a fit of anger, he punched her in the nose. When Priscilla intervened to defend her daughter, Cullen snatched the kitten she held in her arms and brutally slammed it onto the floor, resulting in its death. He confessed to this. Priscilla and Dee weren't the only ones to make such accusations against Cullen. His first wife, Sandra, had also accused him of physical violence. She said he slapped her in public and did worse in private. Cullen appeared to be fixated on his house and perceived it as his ultimate accomplishment and most prized possession. Approximately a year after the incident with the cat, Davis slapped Dee again, prompting her to run away from home. After enduring nearly 2 years of recurring abuse and unsuccessful 911 calls, Priscilla filed for divorce in the summer of 1974. During the following months of separation, Davis and Priscilla had limited contact, and Priscilla subsequently met Stan Farr, a former TCU basketball star known for frequenting nightclubs. He had experience as a club manager, attempted to become a concert promoter, and had ties to the land business. Before long, Priscilla and Stan Farr started discussing their future together. Meanwhile, Cullen began dating Karen Master, his secretary, who bore a striking resemblance to Priscilla and even dressed like her. Priscilla hired a lawyer with the intention of securing half of everything. When she filed for divorce, her and Cullen's 6-year marriage would take 5 years to dissolve and involve multiple criminal trials. Part of the reason it took so long was because they had a prenuptial agreement. Priscilla signed it 2 days before their wedding. However, she stated that she was deceived. She didn't realize it was a prenup that prevented her from seeking any of the Davis family fortune. She was told it was some kind of tax document, and even if it was legally binding, Priscilla believed that community property included much more money and property than Cullen's estimation did. Priscilla claimed that the community property wealth amounted to over $100 million, which would be the equivalent of around $600 million today. Essentially, that was Cullen's entire net worth, and she wanted half of it. Cullen's side argued that the majority of his wealth was either exempted by the prenup or had been acquired before the marriage, so it wasn't considered community property. The portion considered as such was only a fraction of his overall wealth. The judge assigned to the divorce case, Joe Eidson, had a reputation for siding with housewives in divorce proceedings. In the ensuing divorce trial, Priscilla gained temporary ownership of the mansion and its furnishings, a Lincoln Continental Mark IV, increased monthly support payments during the trial duration, and secured custody of Dee. The judge issued a restraining order preventing Cullen from visiting the mansion and freezing the couple's assets until they reached a settlement agreement. Cullen was furious with the ruling. This restriction meant that Ken Davis Industries International couldn't finalize any business deals without obtaining prior approval from the divorce court. Soon after, a dispute erupted between the Davis brothers regarding control of Ken Davis Industries' business operations. Bill, the younger brother, filed a lawsuit, alleging that his older brothers were engaging in stock manipulation and collusion to sideline him. He also expressed concerns about Cullen's extravagant spending habits, which he believed endangered the company's financial stability. The lawsuit was eventually resolved through an out-of-court settlement, but it created a division among the three brothers. Kenneth reprimanded Cullen for the ongoing divorce proceedings not being concluded. In late 1974, Judge Eidson ordered an increase in monthly support payments to Priscilla. By the summer of 1976, she had invited Stan Farr, her new boyfriend, to reside at Stonegate. The divorce proceedings intensified, leading to bitter conflict. On August 2, 1976, after another divorce hearing, the judge granted Priscilla a third increase in alimony. Around 9 p.m. on the same day, Stan and Priscilla went out for dinner with friends, leaving the mansion. Priscilla made sure to activate the sophisticated security system before they left. The security panel near the front door indicated that all doors and windows were locked. Her 12-year-old daughter Andrea was alone in the mansion until at least 10:30 p.m. when she spoke on the phone with her friend. Priscilla's other daughter, 18-year-old Dee, forgot about the arrangement she had made with her friend Beverly Bass, who was supposed to spend the night at the mansion with her boyfriend, Bubba Gavril. Instead, Dee went to a party. After having dinner, Stan and Priscilla stopped for drinks at the Rangoon Racket Club, where they coincidentally encountered Bubba and Beverly. When Priscilla and Stan got back to Stonegate around 12:30 a.m., she noticed the security system was disarmed. She speculated that it could have been her daughter Andrea or the other daughter Dee, who had perhaps returned home early. While Stan went to the bedroom, she went to the kitchen and saw the door to the basement was open, with bloody prints on the wall. As she called for Stan, a person dressed in black, with a women's wig and a stocking mask appeared, greeted her with a simple, "Hi," and shot her once in the chest with a gun wrapped in a black plastic bag. She screamed again, and Stan arrived, struggling briefly with the intruder. The intruder fired 4 shots at Stan, 2 when he was already down. He died in front of Priscilla. She pleaded with the killer she believed was Cullen, telling him he was the only man she ever loved. He kept pulling her inside as she begged him to stop. Once inside, he left Priscilla on the floor and went back to moving Stan's body. Suddenly, a car pulled up, distracting the killer. Priscilla, miraculously surviving a gunshot to the chest, saw an opportunity to escape. She hid in the bushes and heard a woman's voice approaching, fearing it might be her daughter, Dee. The killer also heard the voice and came outside. Priscilla decided that running for help was the best option. She noticed blood on the door before knowing about the gunman, which made her wonder where her daughter Andrea was. Priscilla went to the neighbor's house and knocked on the door. It was very late, and the couple inside were alarmed to see her. She explained who she was, and that Cullen Davis was at her house with a gun. The neighbors called for help, but didn't open the door. Priscilla stayed outside with her gunshot wound, worried about Andrea and Dee. The voice she heard wasn't Dee's, but Beverly Bass's, who had arrived with her boyfriend, Bubba Gavril. The gunman shot at them both and wounded Bubba in the stomach. Luckily, Beverly managed to escape. Upon police arrival, they found Stan Farr dead in the kitchen. They also discovered another body in the basement, that of Priscilla's 12-year-old daughter, Andrea Wilborn. She had been shot fatally in the chest. Although Bubba Gavril survived his injuries, he was left permanently paralyzed. After all the survivors identified Cullen as the assailant, he was swiftly arrested at his girlfriend's residence. During questioning, when asked about the killings, he callously responded, "Sometimes, a man doesn't need a reason." But his lawyer stopped them from using this statement against him because he hadn't been told his Miranda rights at that time. He posted $80,000 bail soon after his initial arrest, but was rearrested while attempting to board a private jet. He was charged with capital murder and held without bail. At the time, he was reported to be America's richest murder defendant ever. His wealth was estimated at $150 million. Even though no one saw Andrea being killed, the prosecutors chose to start with her case because they thought she was the most sympathetic victim. Cullen hired the best attorneys. His defense team included renowned lawyers, Phil Burleson and Richard Racehorse Haynes, known as the master of winning impossible cases. Due to local publicity and jury misconduct, the trial was moved to Amarillo to avoid bias. Although Cullen Davis was in there on trial for his life, he was treated like visiting royalty. He gained public support due to his wealth and celebrity status. Tall, slim, handsome millionaire, seemed like a movie star. Every day his fans were waiting for hours just to take a picture with him or ask for an autograph. Women would bring him cookies. On the other hand, they would hiss when Priscilla walked by. The defense team was correct to assume that Priscilla's ostentatious and lustful lifestyle would make the public detest her. Cullen wasn't treated like an ordinary prisoner. During court lunch breaks, he didn't eat in his cell. He dined in a vacant jury room, served by waiters in gold jackets, surrounded by some of the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders as his guests. One of the judges allowed Cullen to install a phone line in his office, and his assistant was taking care of Davis's fan mail. Following the presentation of the prosecution's case and the evidence provided by Beverly, Bubba, and Priscilla, the defense presented their version of events. Richard Racehorse Haynes discredited the eyewitnesses' testimonies, claiming that Priscilla had conspired with Beverly and Bubba to identify Cullen as the shooter and had lied as part of a scheme to obtain his money. He presented alternative suspects, pushing the theory of anybody but Cullen. Haynes questioned Priscilla for days, planting reasonable doubt by bringing up her past. He portrayed her as a prescription drug abuser and depraved, promiscuous woman, the queen of wild parties at Stonegate Mansion, where she would invite motorcycle gang members and swingers. He questioned her parenting skills and even asked what was she doing with all the money that Cullen was giving her each month, suggesting she hang out with drug dealers. The defense team was so consumed with making Priscilla the villain of the trial, focusing on her appearance and her bad girl image, that they completely ignored the 12-year-old girl who was murdered. She was simply forgotten, and her grieving mother was being berated. They also attempted to shift blame onto the victim, Stan Farr, arguing that he was the intended target of the shooting, as he was allegedly involved with drugs too. Haynes emphasized the absence of physical evidence linking Cullen to the crime, and highlighted his alibi provided by his girlfriend Karen. She testified that she had seen Cullen in bed next to her the night of the murders, contradicting what she first told the police, that she couldn't remember if he was at home or not. Eventually, on November 17, 1977, after a 3-month trial, Cullen was found not guilty. The jury deliberated for less than 5 hours. Interestingly, one female jury member reportedly said that rich men don't kill their spouses, but hire someone else to do it. After his acquittal, Davis hosted a haughty party inviting the attorneys, the judge, the jury, the investigators, and the media. They all showed up to celebrate his victory, including 4 of the jurors. Civil suits were later filed against Cullen. In Priscilla's civil trial, he was found not guilty of Andrea Wilborn's death. Stan Farr's children, however, were granted $250,000 from a court settlement. Cullen also settled out of court with Bubba Gavriel. Due to legal and political considerations, Tarrant County's district attorney chose not to immediately pursue the other pending cases against Cullen for the murder of Stan and the attempted murders of Priscilla, Beverly, and Bubba. However, Cullen found himself on trial again for another crime. Priscilla wanted $50 million, and he had no intention of paying it. Cullen hired a private investigator, David McCrory, as an assistant, and allegedly asked him to find a hitman to arrange the murder of several individuals, including Priscilla, the judge presiding over their divorce, and eyewitnesses from his previous trial. Luckily, McCrory informed the FBI about Cullen's plan, and federal agents orchestrated a sting operation, faking the judge's death, and taking photos to show Cullen proof of the deed. They catch Davis on videotape discussing the murders and passing McCrory $25,000 in cash in a Fort Worth parking lot. Despite this evidence, Cullen denied any wrongdoing. Once again, he hired Racehorse Haynes as his lawyer. The defense challenged McCrory's credibility and suggested Priscilla may have been involved in a plot against Cullen to get more money out of him. Cullen Davis testified that just before the operation, he got a call from a man who identified himself as James Acri from the FBI, telling him that he was being targeted for extortion by McCrory and Priscilla, who wanted to frame him up. The agent allegedly needed Cullen's assistance to prove it. According to Cullen's testimony, he agreed to help the FBI and decided to play along with whatever McCrory would say. That's why he discussed a murder-for-hire scheme in a recorded meeting the following day. The FBI, however, denied hiring an agent by the name of James Acri at the time of the trial, as well as ever calling Cullen. Regarding the $25,000 payout, Cullen claimed that was McCrory's gambling winnings that he had given him for safekeeping. Davis stated that he was just simply returning the money. The trial ended in a deadlock, and in a subsequent trial, the defense brought in a linguistics professor, who testified that, according to him, McCrory was manipulating the conversation and leading Cullen. He also claimed that Cullen's words on the tape that he wanted Priscilla out of his life didn't constitute a solicitation of murder, and that Cullen was talking about finding his sunglasses, not murder, when he replied, "Good," to McCrory, telling him that he killed the divorce judge. Against expectations, Cullen was acquitted again in November 1979. Several hours later, stung from repeated losses, the district attorney's office dropped other pending criminal charges against Davis. The divorce case, now under a different judge, resulted in Cullen retaining ownership of Stonegate, while Priscilla received $3.5 million, only a fraction of what was at stake. Cullen married Karen Master on June 5, 1979, and adopted her 2 sons. However, he faced financial troubles during the 1980s recession and declared bankruptcy, leading to the sale of Stonegate in 1984. He never rebuilt his fortune. The mansion later served as an event venue often used for weddings, and eventually has been demolished. In 2001, it was revealed that Davis had bribed a DA investigator to gain illicit information about the prosecution's strategy and jury deliberations during the trial for the murder of Andrea Wilborn. Cullen Davis still resides near Fort Worth in a downsized home as a devout Christian and maintains his innocence. Shortly after the trials, he met an evangelist who persuaded him to commit to God. Priscilla Davis never forgot her beloved daughter Andrea and honored her as best she could. Priscilla passed away from breast cancer on February 19, 2001, sustaining her belief in Cullen's guilt until her death. The horrific murders in the Stonegate Mansion remain a haunting and unsolved case that continues to intrigue and baffle investigators and true crime enthusiasts alike. Was justice served, or should we actually call it a wealth of injustice? Nobody has ever been held accountable for taking the lives of Andrea Wilborn and Stan Farr, or for shooting the 2 survivors. Did money, fame, power, and privilege influence the outcome of Cullen Davis's trial? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching.